Welcome to the White and Blue Podcast. I'm Doug Goodnow, and my co-host is Colleen McGinnis. We are here to tell the interesting stories of Hillsdale College alumni, or more accurately, help them share their own stories. Here's a little bit about today's guest. Rob Fodor was a sharpshooting guard who could do it all during his basketball playing days with the Chargers. Since graduation, he has carved out an interesting career, which includes modeling, business ventures, and being the shooting coach of the NBA's Miami Heat. In his spare time, he is also trying to qualify for the Senior PGA Tour. Rob, thank you for joining us today.
I appreciate it, Doug. It's Colleen. It's a pleasure to be here.
All right, Rob. It's fun to finally meet you. I've talked to you on the phone. We've been texting. We're very excited to have you on campus and to honor you with an Alumni Achievement Award. So thank you for taking the time to come and be with us today. My burning question here is, you're known as the shooting guy. Tell us your process for learning how to shoot a basketball and train others to do the same.
Well, again, I'll say thanks for having me. It's really humbling to be here. To hear about a Career Achievement Award, it's never thought about anything like that. So I'm blessed and to be able to travel this path. How did I learn how to shoot? So obviously when everybody wants to be an athlete, I grew up in an athletic family. Baseball was the center focus of my dad was a pitcher for the Reds. My grandfather was a professional pitcher. And I was playing baseball as well, but obviously spent all my time playing basketball here. And growing up, being a smaller kid, I was the youngest kid in my class. I was 17 when I showed up at the campus of Hillsdale. So I was always the little one. And so I actually taught myself how to shoot and came up with some different methods that I'll kind of pass on in a second, but just going through watching, observing, studying everybody else that were great shooters and trying to figure out what the commonalities were, what the challenges were that they had. And here I was, a little tiny junior high kid, but that's the way I always thought. I was always analyzing and I was always trying to figure out solutions. So as I grew, I think the way that, and I'll fast forward a little bit, the way that people learn to shoot and play in the United States, sadly, in a game that we invented, is completely backwards. And if you travel around the world, everybody around the world learns very differently than we do. And we learn to pick up a ball and start throwing it at the basket. And with a little kid, the basketball might be too heavy. The basket might be too high. There's all kinds of different situations. And now we put them out there on defense, and we don't have a process-oriented vision as to how to do it. So fortunately for me, I kind of adopted that in my own head and was trying to figure out what the best way to do this is. So through the course of events, kind of created my own way to do it. And then later on, reverse engineered what I do at the highest levels now. So fun stuff. Yeah. And then I wanted to play. So in order for me to play, being smaller, I needed to do some things well. So I decided that I should be able to shoot, pass, play defense, rebound, every part of the game. So I try to do all of it.
That's awesome.
So how'd you develop your shooting philosophy? I know you talked to me about that earlier.
Yeah. So the way that I looked at it was, as you're growing in the game, you're watching all these players that are really dedicated to being excellent. And coaches were the same. Coaches, and the more I've learned about coaches, especially looking back, I was really blessed with some super high level. My high school coach was a star. He was asked to coach a professional team in Germany. Coach Morse, when he was here, he's now in the Kansas Basketball Hall of Fame.
That's Bill Morse for those Chargers out there.
Terrific basketball coach and hilarious guy that was very intense. And I'll tell you, one of the conversations I had with him was pretty interesting. He came to me one day, I was warming up to shoot. My warm-up was kind of the same. I would come in and shoot some shots. And he said, "Rob, you know what your problem is?" Now, mind you, I've been in the gym for 10 minutes. I haven't missed yet. He said, I said, "Coach, what do you mean?" He says, "Well, you get bored." He said, "You get bored of making them. So you start doing all these crazy things, jumping this way, jumping that way. You get your thumb involved and that kind of thing. And I said something to him I don't think he was expecting. I said, well, coach, the demand for me is going to be to take some of the shots that are going to be very challenging for us in difficult situations with a lot of defense. And I don't want to have it be a first-time experience for me. I'm practicing the challenging situations I'm going to be in. And he kind of thought about that for a second. Next thing you know, we were on the same page. I wasn't actually bored.
You were challenging yourself.
Yeah, and challenging whatever situations, trying to imagine things that we could not spend time to devote to practice. So I was always practicing, and I was the gym rat. I was here at 2:00 in the morning, and et cetera. But so after I went through college, I was going on to a professional basketball contract. I lost one to, oddly, an injury that I have at the very same moment that I sit here. I broke a bone in my hand at the wrong time. I came back to Hillsdale for one more year, got a teaching certificate, and thanks to Jack McAvoy, who kind of brought me back into the fold and allowed me to come back to school for one more year. Lost another contract the following year to the same bone in my other hand. And so this sounds funny, but the life that I've lived, there was a gap of about 7 years where I put the ball down. I decided I must not be meant to play this. I put the ball down. I never touched the ball for 7 years. And I was actually on a golf course in South Carolina practicing because I took up a new game. And somebody came to me and asked, hey, Rob, we heard you played basketball. I think I told you I was hitting golf balls on the range. I never even looked up. And I said, you guys heard wrong. And these two guys are pretty confused. Like, wait a second. So he came back to me the next day. Rob, no. We know you played basketball. I go, where'd you hear that? Well, your wife told us. I said, okay, all right. So I did. So what? They just wanted me to go into the gym where I was not going to play anymore. But, powers higher than us are always pulling at us and leading us in directions that we may or may not understand why we're going. And I walked back into the gym with two guys that I didn't really know. I knew them from the golf course, and they were friendly, and we hit golf balls and stuff together. So we walk into this gym. Never seen one like this before. It had a carpet basketball floor. And here we are shooting, and they wanted to play a game, so I ended up playing them in 1 versus 2. And I kind of tortured them. And then I asked a favor. I said, guys, I haven't shot in 7 years. I haven't played in 7 years. Could you do me a favor and just rebound for me for about 10, 15 minutes? Well, we were at a high school, and the kids started coming in, and I was shooting, and I probably went 15 minutes and didn't miss a shot. And the kids are walking around going, who is this guy? And the two guys that brought me in, I don't know. Just a guy at the golf course. And some kid goes, one of the coaches walks by, goes, that's not just a guy at the golf course. But that event kind of started leading me back into basketball. I got, then I moved to Florida. I got invited to come do shooting camps or speaking engagements for shooting up in Massachusetts again. So from there, I started to re-engineer everything and how I wanted to do this. And I've been studying physics, kinesiology, anatomy and physiology, biomechanics, geometry. I did cross-sports observation. I studied cats. I studied other athletes in all different sports. And it's funny because when I go do lectures, I'll list all those things and people will stop me and go, wait, Coach, did you say cats?
I'm about to ask.
Right. And it's,
they're superior athletes.
It's they're the ultimate athlete.
Yeah, exactly.
And all of us as athletes have heard a coach at some time or another saying, whoa, wow, that guy's quick as a cat, or that kid's cat quick. So I say to coaches, so I studied cats. And I look at them and say, why wouldn't you? And that's kind of an aha moment for people. So from studying all the sciences of movement and balance and forces and energy and athleticism and that kind of thing, you start to see commonalities. But the greatest athletes, being cats, I said, what do we have in common with cats? And being science-based about the approach, they said, we're in the animal kingdom. Kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. So we're a different species, but we have that commonality with the animal kingdom. And what you're seeing when you scare the heck out of a cat or how quick they are or their reactions are fight or flight response. And that was where the commonality became. So, well, we all have that. And the highest level coaches will say, okay, how do we teach that? So that was kind of the biggest challenge. You're studying gymnastics and ice skating and ski jumping and animals and all this kind of stuff. How are we going to put together a program that creates the exact same thing in every possible situation? And that takes quite a bit of time and thought. The challenge of it is coaches would always ask, because coaches are kind of thieves. They pick from each other. They see a play that somebody runs. Ooh, we got to run that play. And then you see I like that drill. I've been asked, I go to consult with people, and coaches will say, well, what drills do you have for us? I said, well, guys, I have drills, but I can give them to you. You're not going to understand it. I came to give you a foundational understanding of what we're going to do. So going back to try to figure out and lay out every single situation that we can be in, it's not most people will teach a move. I don't teach moves. I can, and I do later, but I teach people how to move. And we're so in opposition to how we learn basketball. Basketball is really simple. When you're a kid, you say, Mom, Dad, Coach, I want to play basketball. So being a good mom, dad, or coach, what do? You get a ball, you give it to the kid. And what does the kid do? Same thing I did, same thing every kid did. You take the ball, you bend over, you're staring at the ground, and you start slapping it on the ground. You can see the picture of that. Kids staring at the floor, smacking the basketball. And then the first ever cool thing you did was, you remember? I'm not sure I was ever cool when it came to basketball. Well, this was the thing is everybody went, ready, and you're smacking the basketball, and you step over the ball and call it a between the legs move.
I could never do that.
Well,
maybe I need to take your class.
We're going to be making up a class here shortly. But so the thing about that is the way your central nervous system works is what you just did is you taught yourself how to move your body around the ball. And that moment is a realization for every single coach I've ever talked to. So this is how we learn backwards. The basketball is an implement. Other sports are not taught like that. Tennis, you don't jump around your racket. Same thing. You start swinging a golf club. You're just not doing it that way. For some reason, basketball, that's the way we learned. And it was backwards. So I had to try to reverse engineer it, changing the physical approach, the posture, changing how your brain is wired, trying to apply it to a set of movement, and getting players to understand that the way that we were playing before was backwards. And that's why coaches always went to get the best athletes, because you had to go get great athletes to overcome the challenges, the crap that we learned growing up. And now, as you saw it, you see all the challenges in people shooting the ball. I was able to see it and understand why they were doing it. When you see somebody pull the ball behind their head and throw it up there with two hands, because they started when they were little, they put them in the post. You're playing against big people, the ball's too heavy, and you're trying to figure out, how am I going to get it to this 10-foot basket or 9-foot, whatever it is. It's too high and it's too much of a challenge. So kids just make stuff up because you're trying to compete. So you started out, you played college basketball, and you almost went pro a couple times, and the fate had other ideas for you. You took a hiatus, you got back into it, and you started developing a system that eventually led you to coach in the NBA. So that's one reason why, for context for our audience, that we're bringing you here is you're reached a pinnacle in your career as a coach for a professional team. It's a huge deal, but obviously I'm sure there was a progression to that. So for our audience, Rob is getting our Distinguished Alumni Achievement Award in Professional Athletics as a shooting coach and player development coach for the Miami Heat. So walk us through, if you wouldn't mind, that kind of progression from the realization back into, okay, this is something for me. Basketball is, I have a calling here, and where that took you. Well, I don't think that ever goes away. If you're a basketball guy, you're always a basketball guy.
You did set it down.
Just because you're on vacation doesn't mean you've stopped doing it. So coming back into the game, and I went back to start playing. And I was a school teacher. When I moved to Florida, I taught school and I coached.
Okay.
So I coached the basketball team and the golf team at a high school in Miami. And while I was there, I got to Florida at 29 or 30 years old. So I'm still young. I was pretty athletic. And I started working out, and I made friends by going to a basketball court. Mm-hmm. And when I was at the school, kind of funny that there was a group of teachers that came and asked me to play with them. Hey, we're going to this open league. Well, I told you, I was the only one that knew what an open league was. That was all the pros who haven't left to their professional jobs overseas and training camps and all that kind of thing. So here are these high school teachers that didn't know me. Hey, we heard you played basketball. Okay. So I go with 5 guys from school, 3 guys that were high school players. And we're going to walk into the gym with people that I knew who was going to be there, but they sure didn't. We had 1 Division III player, a college football tight end, and 2 junior high school teachers and a high school teacher. So we walk in, and here are 4 McDonald's All-Americans on the team that we're going to play and 4 NBA players. And then there were 7 other European EuroLeague caliber stars, 3 7-footers. And these guys are looking at each other. So I walk over and say, look, guys, I've played in games like this. I played in St. Cecilia's professional league. I had free agent tryouts, and this is what I did. I walk over and say, look, here's what's going to happen in this game. If you guys get in trouble, I'll handle the ball for us. Now they're all looking at me like, who the hell are you? So,
yeah, that's what I was going to say. I would just tell them one thing: give me the ball.
Well, I'm always a little bit more diplomatic because people don't know you, and I don't look like I'm that guy. So anyway, one of the guys that was on the other team, who I'm really close friends with even today, 3 of the brothers played in the NBA, all of them. They were all at Miami Senior High, which was a national championship caliber program. And here are all these guys, and these guys are like, oh my gosh, and what are we going to do? And we start playing. Well, I'll fast forward towards the end. I had 48 against a guy that was playing with the Utah Jazz. And at the end of the game, they were triple teaming me. And it was a high school court, so it's a little bit smaller. So there was a loose ball at half court. I didn't know if it was going to be an over and back play, so I jumped over and grabbed it right before half court. 2 guys were coming to trap me, and I just pulled up, let the shot go, and hit nothing. And these 2 guys are like, so after the game, I always get the same question. And this time I got it from both sides, the people that brought me and the people that I just played against. Said, okay, who the hell are you? And I told the basketball guy, I said, I'm just a used to be player. And they said, and so they invited me this is how I made friends everywhere I went. Mm-hmm. Surprisingly, I'm a pretty shy person getting out into public, but getting into my arenas, very comfortable. So I got invited the next day to play at another high school, 4 more NBA players. One of them was Glenn Rice. Well, Glenn and I had played in a ton of the same gyms.
Yeah, Glenn's considered one of the best shooters of all time.
I nodded like I knew, but I didn't.
Just giving you context for those out there.
Well, yeah, Glenn
you may not know who Glenn Rice is.
Glenn is actually national champion at University of Michigan.
Okay.
He was a top 10 scorer in the NBA. He was MVP of the Final Four, and he's the all-time scoring leader in the college basketball NCAA tournament. Still.
Wow.
Glenn and I had played in all the same gyms, and fortunately I had kind of had a little reputation at St. Cecilia's and up in Flint and Saginaw's First Ward and in Pontiac, and Glenn was playing in all those gyms. So we had a bunch of common friends when we started to chat afterwards. But had a similar experience the day I met Glenn. So he and I became good friends. We started playing together all the time. And then it was Ramil Robinson and Tim Hardaway and lots of, et cetera, all the guys that were down in Miami. So I kind of got brought into the Miami culture. I started working with them because guys were asking me, what are you doing now? And they said, well, I'm kind of for lack of a better way to put it, I'm a shooting coach. That is a very small part of what I do, but that's the easiest to understand. That's what everybody wants to know.
At this point, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but at this point, did you have your business, your coaching business that you were doing independently? Or did that come later?
I guess, I'm a teacher. I'm a lifelong teacher, and I'm a lifelong helper.
Okay, very good.
So when I created all this, I kind of put it out there, just give it to people. People were paying me to do lessons and teach their kids and coach their teams and all that stuff. But that's not why I was doing it. I was trying to help my friends. And Glenn and I were playing one day, and I made just a little off the cuff comment to him. I said, gee, if you took that minuscule pause that you have out at the top, we can give you 6 feet of range in about 30 seconds. Now, he is obviously super talented. Glenn is very, very smart. And I showed him, and he looks at me, and he kind of thought for a second, backed up. He shot one like I asked. And I said, now, if you feel this one more time, and he did it again, all of a sudden he had 4 more feet of range. Glenn's natural range was heels on the NBA 3-point line, because that's where all the shots that he had his whole life were before that. Well, now the line changes, the ball changes. He changed instantly. And he won the 3-point shooting contest that year, which was really kind of funny. Everybody says, oh, you did such a... I said, listen, I never made a shot for Glenn. Never practiced a second for him. And I've been really blessed to be with a bunch of really great players. And that's the fun thing about working with talent, is the changes don't take very long, depending on what kind of talent.
Yeah, that was getting my next question is, you've worked with players at all levels, but now you're working with the best of the best, the NBA. What's that like? Sounds like the learning curve is much quicker for those guys.
It depends. I agree with that. It depends on your level of credibility and your level of trust from them. If they know, then yeah, it goes quickly. If they're in doubt, it's always going to be a struggle. Because if you don't believe, it's funny, I kind of use a phrase, we're a league of BS sniffers. And people, you can look at somebody, it's like horses in competition. Horses, when they look at each other, they know who's going to be first at the finish line. They know who's going to be first at the food. Horses are the most competitive animals there are in the world. Wild horses will literally start running in a field, looking at each other, and they will keep sprinting, and they will run right off of a mountain. That's how competitive they are. So when you go to the highest level of competitors, that's how it works. They look at you, and they know. So if I'm trying to teach somebody something, they need to know. If they know that I can get them where they want to, and we're not going to waste time, and I'm not out for some other, for something of my benefit, then yeah, it goes very quickly. So we've had great things happen in 5 minutes for guys, and we've had things that took a summer, and some people take longer, but it's, it depends on what kind of learner, and then, the trust and your ability to decipher and diagnose. That's also a big deal. So,
it may have been Doug that told me this, but is it not common to have a shooting coach on a team? Is that kind of a unique to Miami and your skill set?
Well, I was the first one ever.
First one. Okay.
I was the first one ever at Miami, and I'm the only one that's ever been at Miami.
Okay.
The challenge is, hearing the way that, I approach it very differently than everyone else. If your contention is basketball's always been taught wrong, if you go hire a shooting coach, you're learning the same things that you've always learned. So obviously the science and the thought process has advanced, but if you're doing the same old things, you're just if you do average things and you do them better than everybody else, you get better than average. You have to do great things to get great things. Greatness is very different.
Make it sound very simple.
Well, it is simple. It's just not easy.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the part that people don't get. When you watch somebody say, wow, that looks easy. No, it looks simple. The easy part is some of it's God-given, it's talent, it's drive, it's mental capacity, all that kind of thing. So, so when, we put all this stuff together, when you build that credibility, when you build that trust with people, and it's funny, we've had people come to our organization and they walk in with trust because we've had so much success with people in this particular area, the player development area. We've had a lot of success. But
That's
so,
great.
You've told me about the amount of preparation that goes into everything at the NBA level. For the casual NBA fan that thinks, some of these guys just are natural basketball players and go out and do it. What would be one thing you would tell them that would maybe be surprising to them?
Well, let's just take the preparation for one single game. In the NBA, obviously they've spent years and hundreds of thousands of hours building their own skill set. Then they get to us and realize that that doesn't really mean very much because there's a whole new game that we play here. The mental processing it has to happen so much faster. So in order to be able to make quick decisions, all the information you have to have preset. So I think I was telling you, one simple game, the third game in 5 nights on the road, you just, you got into town at 2:00 in the morning and you're playing the next night. A player's scout, we have probably 4 pages front and back of statistics and analytics just for that game. We have breakdowns of every single player with their pictures, all their stats, and all their tendencies, all of them. Then on everybody's iPad, they have scouts. So we put together probably 4 or 5 different edits for every single game. It's a team edit for their style of play, individual edits for your matchups so when we go through, we ask guys, tell me about your matchup, Doug. And our guys will like this. And you start to see how fast your brains have to become. But the preparation is you've got 4 pages of front and back, just statistical things. Then you've got probably another 3 pages of personnel. And then we've got probably 4 or so film edits that we all go through. The coaches, after we played that game on Tuesday night, we get done about 10:30. We're on the plane about midnight. We've already watched the game once before we get on the plane because we just played it. We've watched some highlights for things that bothered us for how the game went at the end, whether you won or lost. We've watched the game one more time before we land. But generally, we watch the game 4 or 5 times before we get to the very next practice.
Wow.
So that's our responsibility. So we can all tell you what somebody was thinking on every single play. Because after you watch the game 4 or 5 times, you're seeing everything. You're watching where a guy's eyes were going. And you're watching the decisions that people make. And the great plays, how they happened. Whether it was a cover-up, whether somebody just read ahead, all that kind of thing. And you're watching how fast people's brains are, what positions they're in. You can see people anticipating things. Because the funny thing about the NBA is there are 0 secrets. 0. There are no plays that every single play and team does not know. Everybody knows every play you're ever going to run. Everybody knows your tendencies. JJ Redick comes off of catch and shoots to his right 74% of the time. So the guy defending him knows he's going right. And what does he do? He goes right. Manu Ginobili is going to his left 86% of the time. And yet he goes left and he gets left. That's how great players are. And that's how great that, you put people in position to play to their strengths. So all of this stuff is, I make the analogy, it's a super high-speed chess game, which is a blast. And the challenge is you have to live it in a way that most people just never, A, they don't consider it, and B, when they do find out, it's like, oh my God, I don't want to live like that.
Do you have a favorite story or a standout story that you can share that describes the impact of your teaching and coaching with a player or a game?
I don't know about individual, maybe. So one of our guys that's gotten pretty well known for being a great shooter played at University of Michigan and had an interesting path. Duncan Robinson, he started Division III, grew up a little bit. People underestimated him a little. Started at Williams, one of his assistants at Williams left and went to Michigan. Jim Beeline was at Michigan at the time, and the assistant coach, Duncan, was a little too good for Williams. People finally figured that out, and they said, Duncan wanted to transfer. So when the coach left and went to Michigan, he's telling Coach Beeline, hey, you should take a look at this kid. Coach Beeline had no interest in it whatsoever. And long story short, the assistant coach kept bugging him and said, here, watch some films. He finally watched some films, watched him shoot. It's like, maybe we should take a look at him. So he ended up going to Michigan. Then when Duncan got to us, he was an undrafted player. When he got to us, kind of went to Duncan and said, in order for you to be, there's two different types of shooters. If you're going to be a shooter in the NBA, you can be a stationary recipient of the playmakers who kick it out to you and you shoot a quick one standing in one place. Now, in order to be able to do that, you have to be a great defender. That's where the phrase 3-and-D player came from. Now, if you're not a great defender, which I would put Duncan in that category, he's better than you think, but he's not a great NBA defender. In order to be that, you have to be what we call a human trigger. It means you have to be able to shoot and draw people towards you, called gravity. And when he's sprinting around at 1,000 miles an hour, that ball has to hit him and his shot's gone. That fast. So we started torturing Tyler Hero, Duncan, and Kendrick Nunn, who I think I told you was the MVP of the EuroLeague right now. So cool. And so we started training Duncan in a way that was kind of getting people's attention, and all three of those kids were doing it. We played Cleveland when Coach Beeline happened to coach at Cleveland. And understand, there's chips on everybody's shoulder for something. And of course, Duncan had a chip on his shoulder. We go to Cleveland, and here's the guy who wasn't good enough because Coach told him, you're not good enough to play in the NBA. You should go to Europe, make some money. You're never going to make it here. And here he is playing for us, and we're playing Cleveland, in Cleveland, and Duncan throws 10 threes on him. And the interesting thing that happens, and here's where we have a lot of success. We can teach you to get to that first moment of, wow, where'd that guy come from? He can do things we didn't think he could do. But while we're doing that, we have to build in the next 5 layers of your game, because you're going to be demanded that you do many, many things that you've never been able to do, because the scouting report is going to change. You get a couple laps around the NBA, and then the NBA believes it. Okay, he can do this. We now have to take that away, so you're going to be guarded differently. Mm-hmm. And that's where we have a lot of fun.
The development. Building
out things that nobody ever expected. Mm-hmm. And then our guys can, wow, we never thought he was going to be able to do this. Mm-hmm. So that's really fun, and it's gratifying to see those guys be able to truly live out their highest level of potential. So,
as a sports fan, I could soak this up all day, but I think we're going to take a break and be right back with the White and Blue podcast.
Awesome.
Now it's time for the Hillsdale History Minute, where we bring a slice of Hillsdale College history to the White and Blue podcast. For today's minute, we look at James Davidson from the class of 1887. Davidson had a distinguished career in the shipbuilding business. He was the director of the Great Lakes Transportation Corporation and vice president of the American Shipbuilding Company before serving as the chair of the Hillsdale College Board of Trustees. The college presented him with an honorary doctorate in 1904, and a steel freighter was named in his honor, traveling the Great Lakes from 1920 to 1974.
Great books, great people, and great ideas. Knowledge of these things is critical to becoming a well-educated human being. That's why I'd like to tell you about an easy and enjoyable way for you to listen and learn whenever and wherever you want. And that's through the Hillsdale Dialogues. If you haven't heard about the Dialogues, once a week, Hillsdale College President Larry Arnn joins radio veteran Hugh Hewitt to discuss topics of enduring relevance. From time to time, they also talk about current events, but always with an eye toward more fundamental truths. And they want you to listen in, to join a conversation like no other. The Hillsdale Dialogues are posted every Friday on podcast.hillsdale.edu. That's podcast.hillsdale.edu or wherever you get your audio.
Welcome back to the White and Blue Podcast, where we have 1984 graduate Rob Fodor as today's guest. Rob, we talked a lot about your basketball history and what you're doing now in the NBA, but we want to focus on some of the other things you're doing because you're doing a lot off the court. So can you tell us about some of those interests?
Well, as of this fall, we're actually going to build, I do a lot of teaching of other coaches and other teachers. So we're finally going to put together a shooting program that will be out on, I'm always used to saying DVD because I'm an old guy, but I guess however that works, there's going to be a program
streaming,
out there.
YouTube,
could be streaming,
yeah.
Could be subscription. I don't know how it's going to work. My friends are going to handle that, but it's going to be great. I'm doing it with a friend of mine his name's Mike Dunn, and he's been working with me for probably 6 or so years. So we're finally going to do a great program of how we believe it should be done. Other things, I think it's been fun. I've gone through a whole gambit of events and things that I've done. I worked in the automobile business. I used to model. I owned a food truck. I did performance driving and racing. Let's see. I was a school teacher. I've coached in the WNBA. I was a first assistant for a head coach who just played for the NBA title with the Indiana Pacers. And from there, I've gotten, because of the network of people that I get exposed to and the curiosity of things of how my brain works, I've kind of been adopted into a global investment group that's led me to facilitate relationships for all kinds of different business proposals. So a couple of things, it's always fun when you're talking to people have a stereotype of an athlete. And I certainly don't fit into that category, I think, because I'll start talking quantum physics with people and I get that furrowed brow look. Wait, what? And so we have a quantum resistance encryption group that we're involved with. We have a new technology for paving roads that we're trying to finish up. It should be actually next week. We should have everything finalized, and then the next stages of global introduction and application around the world for a new technology of how to build roads. It's really a fascinating thing. I'm involved with an intercellular hydration company to kind of get people hydrated in a way that most of us don't understand. We're out there drinking electrolytes, we're drinking water, thinking that we're getting hydrated. But the way that your cells work, there's two membranes within your cells that protect. In order to get hydration at a mitochondrial level, you have to be able to penetrate those membranes. And traditional methods of drinking water and throwing salt in your body does not do it. So one of the groups it kind of links into another thing that we have. We're building a performance center, human performance and biohacking center that will open in Dubai. And really fascinating as to who we've gotten to be involved with. And now I get to kind of take all these things to different people and create relationships. And the whole thing for me is my brain is always looking for solutions. When basketball came and here are these, what I saw as problems, I wanted to create solutions. And the blessing was that I was able to come up with a method that allowed everybody to do things more efficiently and more effectively. So a better way, better mousetrap. We gave it to people, and now it kind of pulled me down this path. I'm very much into karma. I'm into doing well for others, and you get back tenfold. So basketball worked like that. it's the same in the technology sector. It's the same in roads. It's the same in hydration, human performance, all that kind of thing. And then the same in even investing in the next level of understanding what's going to happen in the world. So I get into it. I do some investing. We're working on a quantum resistance encryption project that has the top level of quantum resistance. Quantum computing, I know people are talking about AI and all that. Quantum computing is a really scary, interesting thing. And that's a next level kind of thing. And I've been blessed to sit with two of the top 5 quantum physicists on the planet. So we're trying to have a partnership in business with it, and a lot of really cool, interesting things to learn. And you get to find out what they need, and through networks of how you treat people your whole life, you kind of build trust in everything. Now you can bring people together and sounds funny, but change the world. So
it sounds like you're more than just an investor. You said this is a lot part of your an investment group that you're a part of. So, I mean, what is your actual role in all of these ventures? Because just listening to you talk about it, I'm exhausted and also inspired. It was awesome.
Yeah, I make the joke, I'm Forrest Gump's feather. I have no idea how I end up in places that I end up. The rooms I've been in with the people that have been in the rooms would absolutely blow your mind. I can tell you stories and everybody thinks you're making it up. But I learned from my dad. My dad was a fisherman and a hunter. And as a little kid, we learned, do not tell fish stories. Don't make stuff up. You don't need to. If you're really good at something, you don't have to exaggerate. So my dad built that in me when I was a little kid. It's funny. There's a funny story that Hillsdale College, here we are, got a bunch of guys from school, and we're telling stories about going fishing and things like that. And I'm telling them about the fish and the animals that my dad has. My dad was a world-class archer and field shot, and he had split metal arrows in his house from target shooting. He could put one in the target and then split it.
Wow.
Arrows. And I was telling my friends this, it's a Robin Hood kind of story that people think, wow, that's impossible. Well, so I would tell my friends this, and then my dad had 3 moose racks that would be top 10 in the world in Boone and Crockett. Had them in his game room. And these giant fish and all these animals were talking. And my friends are like, oh, come on, this is it's all BS.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we were going fishing we were going to go smelt dipping and fishing at Singing Bridge in Eau Gray. And we're leaving from Detroit, stopping by my dad's to go pick up some equipment, fishing stuff for everybody. And so 4 guys walk in with me. We go into the garage first. And my dad's garage was like East Side Sporting Goods back in the old days. There were 90 different fishing outfits specifically for such and so. And there were probably 60 different tackle boxes. So he says, okay, Kurt, you take that one. And so he picks up, there's one specifically for where we're going. So now everybody's got this. We've got clothes. We've got all this stuff. We walk down in and walk up into my dad's game room. He had a 14.5-foot ceiling built on the X part of this house. And there's the game room. And my friend, who was the biggest skeptic, he used to call me Grits for Grits Gresham, the exaggerating fisherman from the light beer commercials. And he walks in, and there are all of the deer racks. There were 2 14-point whitetails in there. And there were moose racks. And the first thing, when you walk up the steps, there's a moose mounted 8-foot or 7'10" at the shoulder, whose head was right at the top of your head when you walked in. And he walks in, he looks up like this, and there's this moose rack. He's looking around the room. Mind you, we're in the room for probably 10 minutes, never says a word. I look over and I see him. He's got a metal arrow, 2 split metal arrows in his fingers. He's rolling them around. He's looking around the room, puts it down. We go get in the car. And he says, Rob, for years, I thought you were absolutely full of it. So I never believed anything. And then he walked in and saw every single story on there. And there it is. So fast forward, when you go build that with people and they know you're not making things up and they know you're not exaggerating to make yourself look good, you can now sit, because much like the NBA is a world of BS sniffers, so are the big boys. So you get one chance at it. You get blown into a room, Forrest Gump's feather, and here you are with these people that run the world. And what impression are we going to make? And if you go there with the intention of, how can I help you? Or can I help you? And if there is a way, through listening to people and what they're speaking of, what level, where their conversations go, you can kind of decipher what they need. Very similar to diagnosing a basketball problem. It's the same for diagnosing whatever solution they're trying to come up with. And I'm a very tangential thinker anyway. And I've been able to kind of put together, okay, I know this, I've heard this, I know this, and I pull people together, and I'm a facilitator and a connector. So after that, put the right people in the right place, and then I just go down the path of trying to make something happen. And it's funny because I think I told you, Doug, this has been the most recent stretch of my life. It's been the shortest part, and it's obviously incredibly fascinating. And it's all been happening in the last year and a half. And it's changing things dramatically. It's exciting. I made the joke. I was with a friend of mine who's an agent. We were walking around the beach in Rancho Palos Verdes down by LA. Mm-hmm. Beautiful. And I said, you know what? His name's Roddy. I said, you know what, Roddy? I have a lot of gratitude. And I said, I probably live the best life of anybody you've ever met that doesn't have any money. And he kind of chuckled. I said, my time's coming. And I don't worry about it. Because if you just keep doing right, I believe that eventually you'll, hit the jackpot. So,
well, you obviously have a voracious passion for learning, and I think you joked like your photographic memory.
Yeah.
But your other talent is playing golf, and you're a very accomplished golfer. So,
Doug stole my question.
I will steal it. I'm a sports guy, so I'm allowed to steal sports questions.
Right, got to talk sports.
What's the difference between hitting a golf ball and shooting a basketball?
As a sports guy, you should know, Doug. Seriously.
Well, I'm not good at either. So,
just kidding.
Well, the funny thing is, and my friends have told me this, whenever you ask me a question, you're generally going to get an answer you didn't think of. And when you talk about shooting a basketball and swinging a golf club, there's similarities, yes, but it's incredibly different. Golf is a side-on game, meaning you're playing the game to the side of you. Basketball is a front-on game where everything's moving straight forward, okay? So the way that you approach shooting a basketball and swinging a golf club, the geometry, the physics are all incredibly different. Basketball shooting is very linear, where swinging a golf club is extremely different. You're playing on an arc. You're trying to create circles. It's actually an ellipse that you're trying to create in your golf swing. You're using ground forces and you're using rotational energy, very different. Where basketball, you're trying to transfer energy in a vertical plane, where in golf, you're trying to transfer it in a different plane. That's the scientific answer of it. The fun thing about golf is I've been fortunate. I've played every game for somebody at one time or another that didn't involve a horse. Golf is probably the hardest game to be truly great at because there's so many different. If I start talking to people about the challenges of golf, I start talking about agronomy. They look at me like, what? Well, probably playing 7 different kinds of grasses. We have different types of silica in the sand that we play in. There's never the same lie. I played a practice round for a nationwide tour qualifier in South Carolina. Go through, make all my notes, all the sight lines for where we're driving the ball over, what the situation's going to be, all the wind directions. And the next day we're playing the tournament qualifier, the wind's blowing exactly the opposite direction. So it's throw that out. Here we go. But while we're playing in a golf tournament, similar, like in basketball, you have an entire staff that's devoted to keeping track of every single detail that's going on in the game. In golf, there's only two of you. And a lot of times there's only one. Until you get really high level, you don't have a permanent caddy. So in golf, it's all by yourself. So on my pin sheet, when I'm playing a tournament round, every shot I hit, I write down every single number that I just played, what lie I had, because that adds to or detracts from the loft that I just played, wind direction, what number and how far I just hit that ball. So on hole 3, I may have the same shot on hole 16 that I had on hole 3. I can go back and look and say, I just had this exact shot. This is what I did. And you start planning. So it's a really fascinating chess game. And where you don't think it's a fast game, some things can get swirling. I was in the sectional qualifying for the U.S. Open at Bay Hill. And I go through 27 holes, and I think I was even, which meant I had to kind of get going. I had to probably shoot 4 under on the backside. I hit a ball on the 10th hole down the right side of the fairway, and it hits the curve, the cutout of a sprinkler head, and it bounds dead right up onto the upslope in the rough on a bunker. So I go in there. Now, this is my first time in sectionals. Okay, so I'm the rookie, and you're always going to face this in your brain. So I get there, I get into the shot. I've got a lie in the rough uphill, and I hit this shot. I had to aim way right because it was going to hook. Pins in the back left. The ball starts flying and starts going towards the hole. Look and said, this could end up pretty well. But then it stayed in the air. It landed right next to the hole and jumped over the green. Well, the hole's usually a pitching wedge hole or a 9-iron hole. So nobody even goes back over the green because we're not going to hit it over the green from where we're going to be. So I said, what's back there? It took 3 or 4 of us 3.5 minutes to find that ball a foot out of bounds. Now the rookie problems start. Now I have to walk back, and I make the mistake. My caddy stays at the green. I go back with a club and a ball. I take a drop, drops in a hole. Now I've got the wrong club. Now I've got guys who play on tour. They're sitting out on their bags in the fairway. And I'm thinking, oh my God, they're waiting for me.
This would stress me out.
Well, and it is very stressful. But what happens is, this is how your brain works. All of a sudden, it feels like things are going really, really fast when they're not. You can control this. But if you're not experienced with it, you have to learn this. Instead of me doing the right thing, said, guys, I should have called my caddy. A tour guy would have, first off, they would have had their caddy with them. But let's say they made that mistake. They would have called somebody back and said, I've got the wrong club. Get over here. And wait, because the rules say that you can do this. Anyway, so I hit another shot. It ends up flying out of bounds again. And now my caddy's got to come back anyway. And now I'm like, oh my God. I finally get done with the hole. I miss a 4-footer. And I think I made a 10. And I'm apologizing as we're walking off and this is the great part of golf. There's a lot of character. The 2 guys that I'm playing with said, Rob, this happens to everybody. Don't worry about it. The rules say you have this long to look for it. Take your time. Don't piss away shots just to make
appease.
Just to appease somebody else.
Yeah.
So later on, my friend goes, hey, how were you playing? You met me on the 15th hole. I said, well, I was playing pretty good until I made a 10 on number 10. He said, how'd you make 10? I go, I whipped out for an eye. Who cares?
Yeah.
So the challenge is, like, when you're playing basketball or most other reaction games, your brain has to take a piece of information, figure it out, and act immediately. In golf, you get to torture yourself. Your brain goes faster when it doesn't have to. Take your time, make your decision. Yes, play quickly and, be efficient, but you get to control what's in your brain. One of the basketball lectures I do is you get to choose how you're going to approach this. I say it to people all the time. If you're 0 for 15 in a basketball game and you're a shooter with 2 seconds left, your coach has drawn up a play for you, do you want that shot? Now, most people will say yes, because they're lying. If they're 0 for 15, a lot of people don't want that shot. Me? Absolutely. Give me the ball. I've missed 15 in a row. There is no way I'm going to miss another one. But if you're 15 for 15 with 2 seconds left, do you want that shot? And everybody will say, hell yeah, I want that shot. As we would. Now, what's the difference? There isn't one. You get to choose what you're gonna decide to think. Now, there are chemical reactions and all that. If you're talking about neuroscience, that's a little different. But what you're choosing, you can choose. I'm going to be great at this moment, or I wonder.
Would you say you've kind of applied a lot of the same study and analyses to golf as you did to basketball, kind of working out? That's, it sounds like you play at a pretty elite level for golf, like
Fair.
basketball. So, is that how you've approached it?
I think coming up with solutions, the application is the same in anything. When I speak, I tell people there's a science to everything. I teach fly fishing. I teach shooting. Once you understand the science of things, then you get to apply things in different ways. There's a formula. There's an old saying. You guys have all heard it. The first million is hard. The second million is inevitable. Why? Because of the person that you had to become to create the first million. So once you understand the process of greatness, the process of solution, the process of overcoming, it's a process. You understand the formula that you have to follow so you can apply it to literally anything. Mm-hmm. So, yeah,
Is there a sport you don't play?
Well, like I said, when I first signed contracts, you're not allowed to, there's a lot of things you're not allowed to do. So I was never allowed to do things on a horse. So I never got to, and everybody that I know, believe it or not, rides horses. I still haven't ridden horses yet.
I have one.
That would be fun.
You're welcome to.
When I get healthy, I'll probably do it. But I think that would be really, horses are incredible animals.
I love them. But when you were talking about competitive and how competitive they are, I don't know that that's him, but he's great.
Your horse.
Yeah. He was a racehorse, but he was fired. So he does what he wants.
Well, remember this, there's a lot of competitors. There's only one champion. Mm-hmm. When the horses are standing in those starting gates and Secretariat was in there against Sham and they're looking at each other, one of them knew.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing. Well, he's a champion in my heart, so
there you go.
That's good.
You talked about a little bit about your Hillsdale College basketball experience, but tell us about your Hillsdale experience. How you feel about your time here at Hillsdale.
Well, I'm always it's always a retrospective for me. I'm excited because this weekend I'm going to get to see some teammates that I haven't seen for a while. There's always somebody that comes out of nowhere that becomes meaningful in your life. When I was here, I was I would say I was an atypical Hillsdale student, kind of where I came from and where I was trying to go. So I went through the college experience slightly differently. I had access to the gym and I had access to things that I needed. So that's what I did. I was in the gym all the time. I was probably a little socially awkward. I never went to parties. Later on I would attend, but I've still never had a drink of alcohol in my life. So I didn't do those things. I wasn't out till 3:00 in the morning unless I was hooping in the gym. So there's always going to be successes and struggles. And I think there was one moment that I was having some struggles. Our coaches had changed over. I had gone through, I had surgery, getting ready for my senior year. And, there were some challenges with the way things were going to be done. And I was actually thinking, because I was asked, or I shouldn't say asked, there were people that were trying to get me to transfer to a couple of different Division I universities. But I was a Hillsdale. I was going to stay. I always felt like if you gave your word that you were going to start something, that you should finish it. And my struggles, so Jack Barker, who was Park and Eck were the radio guys.
Park Hayes and Jimmy Eckert.
Those guys were awesome. And then Jack Barker was just that guy always around our program. And he was very insightful and extremely observant. And he was watching me. And I remember one time I was, because I would, after games or when I was about, I would walk around out in the woods. I would walk to the Arboretum and I would go fishing in the back and I would hike and all that kind of stuff. I was just getting away from things. So Jack happened to see me and he says, "Hey, Rob, I'm going to come get you. I'm going to come get you tonight. We're going to go grab a bite." I said, "Okay." So we're sitting there having dinner and he looks at me and he goes, "Don't do it." And he said, "What do you mean?" He goes, "I know you. I've watched you every single day for this long." And he says, "I know what you're thinking. Don't do it." And so it was a challenging moment, but it was somebody that had taken an interest in me that I didn't expect. And he was a true Hillsdale guy. And he said, so we became closer friends and we got to speak about this and this and this. And he just watched over me and kind of guided me through a really tough patch. And I thought that was obviously a big deal for me. And to this day, now doing this, people know. Nobody ever knew. It was just he and I. And he told me things that had been said about me in the basketball program that were incredibly humbling, things I didn't expect. And, it brought me to a place where I was realizing my worth as a player. And then he was bringing some understanding of worth as a person, worth, to the program, et cetera, that, we need you to be here. So it's kind of, that was a pretty cool moment. And then I think the things that, from the school standpoint, I did have a lot of fun. I'm a very small circle person. I have 3 a.m. friends. I have 2 of them. No, I have 3 of them. 3 a.m. friends are when something goes wrong, that's the call. I've told my best friends, make my phone ring. You get no questions. We got solutions. I don't care what it is, And then you have another set of circle of friends. So here I had probably 1 3 a.m. friend and then 4 or 5 the next circle that were really close friends. And that's how I lived. We had a blast together and I loved going to everybody else's games. I loved rooting for everybody else and I loved all that stuff. And then I think the thing that really stood out to me was kind of what Hillsdale, it wasn't what you lived. It's kind of what the whole thing stood for. I've lived my life on an island almost exclusively. When I decided to play basketball, I was on my own. When I decided to go this route or that route, I'm on my own. And that's kind of the Hillsdale message, because I always thought that was pretty neat that Hillsdale said, you know what? We're going to teach things how we want to teach things. And you guys can take a walk.
There's no video.
I know, that's why I did that.
I'm just kidding.
So that part was always meaningful for me. And I just, because I was like that before I got here. And it kind of just bolstered that, And it was a really cool experience to just see the people in high places at Hillsdale College being recognized around the world for different things. Obviously, I've experienced it quite a bit now. And somebody will say, when they do ask, "Where'd you go to school?" I'll say, I graduated from Hillsdale College. You get that look. I was like, you're one of us, And a lot of people know about Imprimis. A lot of people know about just the history. And, you've had, I think Dr. Arnn was up in the discussion for Secretary of Education at one time. And, you have really prominent folks that are here. And this was really funny. I was in Alaska and I'm wandering about in Juneau, and this is the cruise destination. So there's a trolley that goes up out of Juneau and gets up to the top of the mountain. I was thinking about taking that. So I'm walking around and I'm talking to the person that runs the trolley who I'd befriended for a couple of days. And as I'm standing there, 3 people walk by that had Hillsdale College sweatshirts on. And of course, I'm not shy anymore. I walk over and say, excuse me, hey, who are you guys? I went to Hillsdale. And it turned out to be, I want to say John Cervini's wife, maybe?
Sue?
Yeah.
Yeah, Sue, maybe was the college there for the cruise?
There was a college cruise.
Okay.
And they said, oh yeah, Clarence Thomas is on board and this and that. And so I was like, wow, I thought that was pretty, it is a very small.
Crazy timing.
You realize that's the fun thing about considering quantum physics and quantum anything. We're so much more connected around the world than you think.
Mm-hmm.
And you never know. I've been blessed. I'll walk around.
Good and bad.
Absolutely. I walk around in foreign cities, and I was walking around with one of our heat guys. And I think we were in Ljubljana, Slovenia. And we're walking through the center of the town. Beautiful, beautiful place. I love it there. And as we're walking by, there's two people walking this way. And you know the look. You get used to it. Two people walking by, and they're staring at us as we're walking by. And they're slowing down as we're walking by. And as we walk by, I glance back, and they stopped, and they've turned around. And then when you look back and they see you notice, one of them will come over and say, You're the shooting coach from the Miami Heat, aren't you? I said, excuse me? Yeah. I've seen all your videos, and I've seen all your... This was at a time I didn't even know I had videos, because there's YouTube stuff out there. I didn't even know I had a YouTube channel. Some friends that ran some things for me, so I guess I have a YouTube channel. My basketball instructor, he's like, oh yeah, go watch all your stuff on YouTube. I go, I don't even know what's out there. So that there's obviously technology brings people closer, but energy does. When you put good energy out there, you find the energy people. So that part's pretty fascinating.
Very good. Well, what does receiving an Alumni Achievement Award from Hillsdale mean to you?
That's a great question. Having caught me off guard when I heard about it, I was first. Obviously, I'm very humbled to receive that. I was even more so thankful that people took interest enough to go put a name there, go do some research, and say we should pursue this and have this be a thing for us. And one of my teammates, Ed Pieper, received the award years ago, and I think I'll be thankful for is it will kind of bring me back into the fold of knowing more people here, because there's really impressive.
That makes me happy.
Thank you. But there's impressive people.
Yeah. Very.
And there's impressive people and things that they've done, and you find people achieving in all kinds of different ways. Mm-hmm. And I think it's always good to gravitate towards achievers.
People who challenge you. And
yeah, I mean, you can always learn from people, and I think more so what you find is achievers have generally really good energy. And you've heard it. I'm an energy person, and we pull energy from everywhere. We even get into, I have a grounding technology, so you can learn how to, we're trying to put it in shoes now so you can walk. It's like walking around barefoot, because that's where, when your body is connected to the ground, your body normalizes, and we're fighting all kinds of things that take us out of, 5G, Wi-Fi, all that stuff is designed to kind of pull us away from being energy healthy. So the more good energy you can be around, the better. And I think that's I know it's kind of a wayward answer, but there are really good, when achievers are really good energy people, regardless of what field. And I have a great appreciation for other people's talents. I don't care what it is. You see somebody playing a musical instrument, I appreciate the talent. I know what it takes to be great at that. Go watch, I stayed at the cabin at the shooting compound. Mm-hmm. Wow, what a cool thing that is. And to find out we're national champions all the time, yay. Yeah. And I happen to be friends with a world champion in shooting. So, it's just that kind of energy. And you see these facilities, and you see what kind of people you're trying to attract, and then to be recognized on top of that, it's pretty humbling and pretty cool.
Well, we're happy to do it. We're very excited. So it'll be a fun weekend.
Yeah, and I've saved probably the most difficult question for last. So, what's your favorite Seinfeld quote? Go.
Oh my gosh. That is a hard question. I know probably every line in every show. I'll just throw a couple out. The sea was angry that day, my friends.
That's a classic.
Like an old man trying to return soup at a deli. And then you get to the very end. Is that a Titleist? The marine biologist episode. Hilarious.
Classic.
Yeah. I make jokes because you and I talked about it. I'm kind of a Seinfeld trivia person. And I've actually been I was telling Doug, I took on a panel of 3 or 4 people in a Seinfeld trivia contest. And I was being I don't do this very often, but there was somebody that was challenging me from a place that they were just dismissing me as a competitor, authority, etc. And it was a woman who was working at the school where I was coaching at the time. And she said, well, I'm the queen of Seinfeld trivia. And my friends were telling her, I don't know. I don't think you want to tangle with Rob. He knows it all. And so she came in front of our basketball team and she challenged us. And I wouldn't have done this, but I said, all right, look. I hear you're the queen of Seinfeld trivia. So this is my condescending part, since I'm the king of Seinfeld trivia, I will allow you to get in the ring with me if you can answer one simple question. Now, my basketball team's sitting there and they're all staring at her. And she looks over and she goes, what? I go, what's Mr. Peterman's first name? Now,
I failed that question, by the way.
And everybody does. So, and she says, it's J. I said, no, that's the initial. Then I said, it's been said one time in the entire series by Mr. Peterman in the Secret Code episode. Now, if you have somebody telling you how many times something's been said and what the names of the episodes are, you should know you're in trouble before you start the contest. I said, his name is Jacopo. And he said it on his knee to his grandmother or his mother in the hospital in the Secret Code episode. His nickname is Jocko, also said only one time. So anyway, the great thing about Seinfeld is it applies to every single problem, every goofy thing that's ever happened in the world is in that show.
You bet.
So we have a lot of fun. I'm glad you brought that up.
Well, Rob, thank you so much for joining us today. And for Colleen McGinnis, this is Doug Goodnow thanking you for joining us on the White and Blue podcast. And may that spirit long remain.